So every time every time I'm on my a lunch break, and usually I have lunch here at the house because I work from home. But whenever I do go out and I go, like, I'm usually on the phone with you when I'm out at a fast food restaurant or whatever.
I can almost guarantee whenever I get a phone call from you in the middle of the day, it's like, oh, he's leaving the house.
Yeah, I rarely make a phone call like when I'm in the house because I know that we're gonna talk for a hot minute about something. And usually, like, if I'm eating at home, I'm taking like a 2-minute lunch to eat and get back to work. But when I go out, then I'm like, oh, then we got some time. Let's kill some stuff. And if I go to McDonald's, this will be a whole other episode. And don't kill me for this.
It very well could be, but yeah.
But I'm usually ending up saying like $15 an hour, eh?
Well, they're wanting 17 now. I mean, it depends on where they're at, but $17 an hour for unskilled general labor, where the quality is basically that of fishing something out of the garbage.
Like, not and I don't like. Look, I'm not a political person. I'm a registered independent person. I don't want to get into like the politics of the whole shit. But the comedy here is that no ice cream, and it's so bad that it's now a meme. I didn't even realize that it's like a thing.
Oh yeah,
across the whole country. Mm-hmm. But in addition, yo, I just don't want you to put pickles on my wife's sandwich. That's the only thing. Like, I don't care what you put on my sandwich. I will eat a fish fillet Big Mac if you accidentally put like, just make it.
It's fish fillet with the Big Mac sauce.
Like, if it meets minimum food safety standards, I'll eat the shit. But if I get to, the feeling that I have when I get home and I give my wife her sandwich and she opens it up and I'm seeing her picking pickles off of that, it's like I couldn't even bring home the right shit.
Yeah.
Like, and I know it's not my fault because I said it. And oftentimes, here's the thing that really insists, they put the fucking little paper on it.
Oh yeah.
That says no pickles.
Yeah.
And sure as shit, there's like a whole bunch of pickles on that shit. Like, just don't put goddamn pickles on it. Mm-hmm. Now,
and as far as for an available service, the fact that the ice cream machine is never working, so you can never get a milkshake or a McFlurry or whatever the hell.
Dude.
Like, I don't understand the purpose of having it in the first place if at middle of the day on like a random Thursday, like at 4:00 in the afternoon, like, the ice cream machine's not working. Oh, it's not working. I'm like,
what's funny?
I can kind of understand at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, like if you've been out, doing whatever, and it's like, yeah, it's down for service. I'm like, okay, yeah, got you, but like, this is your prime time stuff. It's July right now. Like, you should be selling some ice cream, and you can't, or you don't. One of the two. Like, you just.
But
we failed to comply with that particular part of our franchise. It's like, there's the guy, Mitch Hedberg, what does he say? Like, Big Macs? Nope. We got spaghetti.
But you know what's funny is that they have, a lot of the places around here have the fucking digital menu now.
Yeah.
And like, you don't even, like, you can tell, like, you drive up and they just nuke that part. Like, they just click, delete. No, we don't got that. Nah, that ain't a thing. No, get rid of that. And so, like, McDonald's, I don't know what the company's political stance is, but I rarely go there anymore. And the reason is because I just don't need that much rage in my life. I want to live it's the thing that, like, I don't go out a lot. I work from home, so I don't, like, I only go out. It's like, those people that say I only scratch when I itch.
Yeah.
I don't go out just to go out. Like, I go to my backyard, I go swimming or whatever, but I get my son outside within the confines of my house.
Your paid for property.
Yeah, that. And so if I go out, it's specifically to do a thing. And so if I've taken the time to put my key in the ignition and go somewhere, and then when I come back, it's like, I don't even want to call you because I'm so mad, right? Like, and I know it's first world problems, but I don't even want to call you and be like, yo, not only did I say it at the speaker and at the window where I paid, but at the second window, I said, yo, that's the one with no pickles, right? And your person looked at me and was like, yep, this is it. Look, it said they put the sticker on it that says, and they stuck the little receipt on it that said no pickles. And it's not even like I'm saying like, yo, you forgot to put something on.
Yeah.
You just
I asked for something out of the ordinary.
Don't reach in that direction of the pickles. And you did it anyway. Like you saw it and you're like, oh yeah, this person doesn't want pickles. Fuck him. Pickles. And so like, okay, fine.
Me and my wife had a similar experience recently because like I'll usually eat a standard meal, but like she'll usually get a couple of things off the dollar menu, like a double cheeseburger, a small fry, and a small drink. But like now it's just like a drink because no matter what it is, it's $1. But like she was like, you know what? Let me order the Happy Meal because like it's the same. It'll be the same price, and like I can say Happy Meal, you know, whatever. And so. With a Happy Meal, she's like, "Look, I just want cheese and ketchup on my on the burger part. That's all I want." Which is, to me, seems a reasonable request.
Yeah.
So we go through the line and get to the actual window, and we're like, "Hey, here." She gets handed the box. You know, I get my bag or whatever, and then she gets handed the box and whatever. And we open it up because she usually will check because she'll hand it back and be like, nah, fuckers, like you need to make this right. And she opens the box and there's only fries in it. There's no burger at all. And I'm like, look, you missed half this shit. Like,
you know, I'm going to look up.
Half the requested amount of stuff is what needed to be in here.
I'm going to look up, when was a Happy Meal? When did that come out? There's a reason I'm looking this up because Happy Meal is a kid's meal, blah, 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 history. Mid-1970s. So let's say 1975, just to be whatever.
Mid.
77.
Yeah.
So you've had 33 years. 33? No, 43 years.
Yeah.
43 years to be doing Happy Meals that come with a sandwich or equivalent, like in chicken nuggets.
Yeah.
Fries.
A main course, the side, and the drink.
The toy and the drink.
Yeah, of course, the toy.
If you're going to forget something, forget the toy. Because, like, every meal comes with entree, side, drink, entree, side, drink. That's what you're doing all day.
Yeah.
But the fucking burger? Come on, man.
And so, and here's the other thing, is like, it was like 8 o'clock at night or whatever. They were packed up. And we drove through and we got to that window and they're like, can you just move up real quick for us? Because like there's another window up there or whatever. And so, they had us move up while she's just checking it. And I'm like, all right, and, you know, whatever. And I pull up a little bit and it's still 8 o'clock at night. So it's not like, you know, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. She opens up and like, there's no burger in here at all. I'm like, Mom. I'm like, so I'm like, I'll just go in. The doors are locked. So we have to go through the line again, and at this point I'm livid because now I know my shit's gonna be cold by the time we get home, or whatever. And so whatever, but like that's been like, I'm like, what is? And it was the same place, and I messaged you. I was like, the people at your McDonald's,
I remember,
did this or whatever.
And I'll tell you at that point. I don't care if McDonald's is like saving kittens. Like Ronald McDonald House. That's wonderful charity. But like I mean, not to sound like elitist, but like I have it's cold food.
Yeah.
Or not cold in the case of not having ice cream.
Yeah.
Contrast that with Chick-fil-A, right?
Chick-fil-A.
So there's a Chick-fil-A in our town, and that like once in a while, me and my wife have our code, and I'll look at her and be like, "You want breakfast?" And she knows what I mean.
Yeah.
So we'll have the little dance of like, do we want to really spend money on Chick-fil-A? But Chick-fil-A breakfast is on point.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's the shit. So I go over there and I tell them, and they're like, "Oh, it's Jeff. Hey, Jeff." It'd be a pleasure to you didn't want the pickles on the thing?
No problem.
No, it's my pleasure to serve you. No problem. Oh, you want some extra honey mustard? That's great.
Yeah.
And let me not forget the thing that you have with the little burrito thing. Yeah. That's awesome.
And then we throw some mince and some moist towelettes in there.
And then have a blessed day. And then you go and you look and you're like, oh my, wait a minute.
It's all the stuff in the amounts.
Everything is in here?
It's all the stuff I ordered with all the particular, nuances that it is, with some extras, and it was happily given to me for the price that I asked for it.
And in addition, I'm a tricky orderer because I used to work in fast food many years ago, so I know all the weird little things. So I'll sometimes add like, oh yeah, and an extra hash brown on this, and move this sandwich over there, and blah blah blah. And so like,
I used to work at a Chick-fil-A too. So like,
and
that was my first job, kind of. But
to them, it's like, yeah, whatever. Here you go. You're not tricking us. Like, what do you think? You know more about this than we do? I got this, and they give me a bag with all the shit I ordered. And I'm like, wait a minute, is this a gag or something? How'd you do that? And quick.
Is it because we're so used to just being like looked down on from the masses of them? We're like, oh, here's your piddly little food from like the bigger chains. Like, here you go. And then when we get it right, when they get it right, we're surprised.
Like, wait a minute.
It's been such a, we're usually in such a drought of like service and whatever for so long, and then all of a sudden when they get it right, is like, oh, I've been given a blessing.
and not just a blessing, but a blessing. And like, even an atheist would be like, oh yeah, thank you, have a blessed day. That's awesome, thank you. And my food is here, and it's hot. And like, I pull out a hash brown, and I bite into it, it's crispy, and it's like freshly made.
Yeah.
All right, so today's episode, and so this is the End of a Species podcast. I'm Jeff.
I'm Adam.
And today's episode, we're talking about like brands and whether it's their actual or perceived political alignment. I didn't want to dig too deep into this because I know that if we dig too deep, we might pop what I call the fake news bubble, where I'll find a source that says, well, this company that you thought was really a Republican donates more to Democrats, and this other one does the opposite. And they're like, oh, fake news, that source is biased. I don't want to do that. So we're going to go with what your perceived notion of a company's political ideology is. And this whole thing started with, recently, my wife has prodded me to go back a little more into social media. And there's a thing that happens when you go back into social media. It's like if you were on a different planet for a while, and you come back to Earth,
a peaceful one.
Yeah, you went to a normal human having planet where no craziness exists, and then everything that's negative about humanity gets shown to you in a flash, almost like.
In the Fifth Element, like when she gets to war, and then she's like, "Oh shit,
what the hell is this?" Yeah, like that, and it's like, okay, what am I seeing? And so, some of the thoughts that I've had about how bringing topics to the show have come from posts that I've seen on social media, but this specific one was interesting because it didn't actually. I didn't have like a reaction to it instantly. I just looked at it and I was like, that's interesting. And it had to do with the fact that there's a group of, like, a growing group of people that are like, I'm no longer eating at Chick-fil-A because they donated to LGBTQ causes.
Right.
And so my thought is, well, overall, how do you get to that line? Like, where does, like, I know that there is a line. For example, if you find out that a place that you go to buy your meat and they have really good steaks, they're secretly sending money to Al-Qaeda or something like that. You might be like, wait a minute, how badly do I want this ribeye?
Yeah.
You know,
well, and that can be explained in all kinds of different things, like,
or like if they're a front or something like that, like literally directly doing illegal stuff.
Right, exactly. So, like, if GameStop is dumping oil onto baby seals, like,
I'm gonna tell you,
you would be like, fuck GameStop.
Yeah, but to be fair, if GameStop was buying out all the Dawn soap in the world and literally pouring it on baby like ducks and cleaning them and then doing the little I just brushed my teeth white picture with the ding. Yeah. Look, I cleaned a duck. I'd still be like, fucking stop. Just saying. So I guess, I mean, that's another interesting dynamic there. Like, I don't care what game's out there. I'm still going to hate them. Like, this is a blood feud that goes on forever. But yeah, like the line for that, like, if I don't agree with, like, let's say, would you, if you're a staunch Republican and you found a restaurant that made the absolute best tacos in the world, right? Like this is a Mexican restaurant and they make great tacos and they're just called, this is the Hillary Clinton Cafe. But when you walk by, like the smell hits your nose and you literally like your mouth starts to water. Would you go to the Hillary Clinton cafe? Similarly,
not particularly. Like, I mean, like the name of it kind of doesn't sing to me. Like, as far as like an enticement for like that's where you go to get food. But I mean, I've heard of like different things. I don't. And me and my wife, we love mom and pop like little places. Mm-hmm. Because that's usually where you're going to get like the best and most
the dive
food.
Spots.
But that seems like it's like a giant corporation that like probably doesn't care, and or nobody's going to respect.
And similarly, like if there was like a burger joint that made Five Guys look like garbage, but it's called like, well, this is bad because I was about to say like Trump burgers, but then there's Trump steaks, right? So like, but like let's say no, like I mean. I've never seen Trump steaks. The stigma is that Trump steaks suck, right? But like, let's say Trump steaks were like the best steaks ever. Mm-hmm. But you're an anti-Trump person. Would you buy the steaks? Would you go get the steaks?
Well, I mean, no, probably not, because I mean, like, he's a giant orange asshole.
what's the line? That's I guess what I want to look for.
The line I feel is usually not necessarily to like a particular like leaning as far as for policy, but it's like any kind of like action as far as taking that like inhibits somebody's ability to do something. There's plenty that you can go out and do, and like as far as for like choosing a steak, like there's tons of different steaks out there. You can order them off the internet and they'll show up next day from Oklahoma in a freezer box or whatever, and then you can put them right back.
Oh, the dry ice is the best part of that.
But like it's difficult. It's difficult to kind of say, because in general, like if you're making a quality product and it's good and it's made in a way that's not destroying the environment or destroying this or destroying farmland or kicking other people out of jobs or whatever, then there shouldn't be any kind of issue. Whether or not the CEO of that is like, I'm a Baptist and whatever, like, oh, like, well, I'm Catholic, and then that's gonna be an issue. Like, I can't buy that. Like, that seems minuscule to me. Like, who cares? When you start infringing on the rights of people, or you start destroying the environment, is usually when I start having an issue. Or sometimes, like if it's just in bad practice, like you're a giant corporation. This is another reason why I kind of have an issue with EA, is that like they buy out like really good, like tiny video game companies, and then like that whatever their next game they put out, and then they gut the entire company, and it's like, come on, man! Like they were doing well, and now you're just gonna homogenize them into the shit brand that you are. And it's just, come on, like let the goods, you got to get good stuff flowing out there. You can't make it this like, you can't make another fucking, I don't know.
Whatever it is.
Whatever. Like,
so here's a question. Like how much, like what's the line in reverse? How much of a political difference that you have? Like, let's say, is there a point where there's a company that maybe isn't super environmentally friendly, but damn, do they make good microphones or computers or whatever it is, right? Like if you found out that your favorite graphic tee company that has all the like you wear graphic tees, right? Like
that's I'm wearing one right now.
That's your jam.
Yeah.
But better yet, like let's say Nintendo. You found out that Nintendo was like their way of manufacturing the Switch. They just didn't have the best environmentally friendly techniques or
for
whatever.
Every Switch that they made, 5 babies had to be gut and skinned or whatever, something like that.
Let's say baby seals, not babies. Please don't write emails to us because we don't. End of a species advocates the end of the entire species, not just babies. So just. Just keep that in mind when you're writing your emails.
The process of making sure everything fits just right, you have to cut a piece of back skin off and peel it and then put it in, and that's padding and whatever.
Or for you to play Zelda, it had, there's a bunch of 14-year-olds that no longer have a childhood because they're screwing in the stuff.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of issues that come down with that kind of stuff because you fall into human rights, but I know there's a lot that goes out in the world about practice for stuff being manufactured overseas because labor laws and stuff are different over there as opposed to in America. And it's almost like loophole-ish because they're going over there to get stuff done. But I mean, it turns into sweatshops versus designer brands and whatever else. And if you find that the company intentionally went over and did stuff that became an issue, it's weird to say, that they sought out to particularly go into 14-year-olds, screwing and stuff for the Switch and putting the motherboard on and whatever. That's a little weird as a policy, but Nintendo's a Japanese-based company, so I don't know what their labor laws are over there, and over here in America, you can get a job at 9 years old. You can get up at 3:00 in the morning and bicycle a paper route if you really want to.
That is true.
So I mean, we have labor laws about amount of time. I know a thing with actors and stuff. That's why twins are used so much as babies or little kid actors is because you're only allowed to use the kid for 4 hours a day or whatever. So you have one kid act for 4 hours, then you swap them out for the twin or the triplet or whatever, and then they work for 4 hours. So you get more out of the kid that looks the same, and no one can really tell the difference. But that's a law that we have here. And I mean, you can be an abuse because we're trying to educate and grow and develop, and a lot of stuff is machine operated and on assembly lines and stuff now, so there's less need for some of those child labor things. But it's so hard with a world that is surprisingly large and small at the same time to kind of eliminate stuff like that completely. Because so one person makes a microchip. That microchip is made in a terrible place or whatever, but it's a good quality or whatever. But it's put together by 4-year-olds that are being prodded with cattle prods every 15 minutes if they're not doing it well enough. That microchip is then given to another company that humanely and correctly gives it to a bunch of 20 to 25-year-olds who assemble a gaming PC, and then that is then distributed by another larger company or whatever. And the first company that bought the stuff from the original company, they don't necessarily know how they got all their parts from it, but if you follow the trail back far enough, then you find out they're cattle prodding 4-year-olds because they have tiny hands to fit into the little things to make sure things are done right. And it's hard to avoid in just a general thing, but should you quit buying everything around us, right here right now, microphone stands, lights, equalizers, mic inputs. Do you know where every part of all of this ever came from?
No, but I'm also surprisingly apathetic to a lot of stuff. And I say that not to be like cheeky about it or anything, but it is something that I think about because there are cases, and we've talked about it even on this show, where there are cases where a company will do something and I'm like, nah, I'm not messing with y'all no more.
Right.
But like,
well, in the 90s, the Catholic Church tried to quit Disney. Everyone boycott Disney. It's not, because of the homosexual support thing. And I was like, is that really worth? If them going down there, like, there's a different thing if two guys walk into Disney holding hands or whatever, who gives a shit? But if they're wearing shorts that are too short for them and their dongs hanging out one of the short legs, like, and your 3-year-old who's at dong height is coming into contact with that, like, then yes, I consider that to be a problem.
Yeah, that's a whole
different thing.
That would be a problem if it was a heterosexual couple. Like, if it's a guy and a girl holding hands and you got that same thing happening, then we got an issue. I don't know that that's really the hill that the Catholic Church wants to plant their flag on, mostly because of the glass house thing, especially in the 90s.
Right. Well, yeah, exactly. The 90s and the early 2000s, like, that's still a huge thing that kind of came about. But still, like, it depends on what was the general consensus on what started the outrage and why we should quit Disney or why we should quit. Wasn't there a thing with Sony recently? We were quitting Sony for...
I'll never quit Sony. I don't even know what it was, if there was a thing. But
I think it all came out during like their file leaks or whatever. There was something about quitting Sony. I don't remember. There's so much.
You know what? I do remember something like that. But I'm gonna say this. Like,
it was because I remember exactly what it is now. It was because of the Ghost in the Shell thing, where Scarlett Johansson was playing an Asian. And then, like, they were going to digitally alter her face to make her look more Asian or whatever. And there was this huge backlash about that. And I'm like, you have a beloved, Japanese story property. Is it really hard to hire an Asian person to play a part of a synthetic person? Like, it doesn't make a lot of sense. But, like, you also go to the other side of it where it's like, hey, we need this movie to sell and make money, so let's put a giant star in it.
Let me clear something up for anybody out there listening that has this fantastical view of movies and Hollywood and all of that. It's a business. Period. Case closed. It's not an artistic venue. There are countless actors. Like, there's a comedian that said that he was really, really funny until he got into comedy. And like, that's what it is. Like, when you're a musician, you're not like, hey, I'm inspired to make this. It's, hey, this is what sells. Go write about this.
Yeah.
When it's a movie and you wrote this movie, I guarantee you're going to find countless examples of people who wrote something and they're like, this is my magnum opus. And then Hollywood went and like just... Hey, we just rewrote a couple of things, and we want, I don't know, Mickey Rourke. He's hot. Let's put him in the thing because he's hitting right now. Yeah, and that's how it works. So the Doctor Strange thing with the Sorcerer Supreme.
That was another big thing, and there was a whole big thing with Tibet, and like because the whole thing was supposed to be set in Tibet, but they changed it and then never quite mentioned where everything was. Because they wanted the movie to do well in China. And if you mention Tibet in and of itself, they have a thing where China believes Tibet is part of them, but Tibet wants to be independent. So they just ignored it completely and didn't say anything. But like you had that whole thing, and then you had the fact that, what was her name? The character name was supposed to be like a really old Asian man, but now it's changed into Tilda Swinton.
Yeah.
And she's now this guy who's supposed to have, all this magical, mystical power from the East. And like, why did we, whitewash this? And like, that sparked a whole controversy on boycotting that movie.
But similarly, there were whispers of turning Peter Parker into like a black dude.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not talking about Miles Morales, but like making Peter Parker black.
And that was a whole thing where Childish Gambino was going to do it, or Donald Glover.
Yeah,
he was going to play Peter Parker, and he was like, "Yeah, Donald for Spider-Man," and that blew up.
Oh.
And I almost wonder if that was the reason for the creation of Miles Morales, because Miles Morales didn't really exist until like 2012 or 2013, something
in that range,
between 2010 and 2014. I'll say, like, I'm not exactly specific, but like that was in the realm of like, well, let's do an alternate universe where Peter Parker's, it's not Peter Parker, but it's another guy, and then he gets it.
And for all you people that are flipping out, it's not Peter Parker. Really not Peter Parker. As a matter of fact, we have 17 Spider-Mans and a pig. It's great. Like
one's an Asian girl and a robot.
It's great. We're just not. Peter Parker's still the one.
Yeah.
We have not taken that. And like, Nick Fury used to be David Hasselhoff looking, and now he's Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah.
But like, it's not something that has to do with anything other than what do we think is going to sell. Period.
Right, exactly.
It's 1,000% a fiscal decision. Sometimes those fiscal decisions border on things that we're like, oh, well, that's whitewashing, it's racial, it's blah, blah, blah. And yes, part of that has to do with it, especially like if you have certain movies where it's like, well, we want this to play in the South. But it's always a fiscal thing.
And going back to the Ghost in the Shell thing, like that had a large audience for it is, but if you're gonna like mass make this movie and try and mass appeal to it, you want to try and throw a star in there that's gonna pull numbers at least.
Yeah.
And so they pulled Scarlett Johansson, and then those files leaked, and they're like, oh, they're trying to make her Asian, and they're like, yeah, that looks bad. so like in general, like people saw that and then they boycotted it and then lost their mind. If we've got Chick-fil-A donating to, and I'm not as familiar with what the story is with
depending on who you listen to, they're donating to the Salvation Army, and the Salvation Army is not really friendly to, and this is part of the reason I don't take what I'm saying as gospel. This is all stuff that I read on the internet, and I refuse to research it, because if I have to stop eating chicken sandwiches, that's it for me in fast food. Like that's the only thing I have left. So unless you see you have a video of the CEO of Chick-fil-A just going, I hate the gays, or something like that, I'm not gonna I'm gonna have my chicken. Please do not take my chicken sandwiches away.
Well, and then here's a different thing. The Salvation Army and Chick-fil-A for that is a Christian-based growth of whatever. It's not necessarily that they're anti LGBTQ, but maybe it's not, they're not directly supporting it. But the fact that like, hey, I can't throw all of my spare money at another particular cause to even myself out. Like, hey, I've chosen these things to try and focus on, and that's where our business's money is going to go. Then I don't necessarily see a problem with that in general. Now, I know the Salvation Army, at least for the longest part, were in an area that I work in, was doing a lot of good for homeless people and trying to provide meals and food and access to jobs and a place to get mail and shower and clean up and have a place to sleep at night. But like, they were grossly underfunded and they ended up closing down. It's unfortunate, but like, that's just how things go. But like, it's not like if a homosexual person showed up and like, oh, well, we're not going to let you in because of your sexual orientation. It's like, that's just not the cause that they were directly funding.
Yeah.
Like, we're not providing housing for only LGBTQ. We're just providing housing, and we don't really care, but like, we're not going to advertise that, yeah, it's for LGBTQ people in general or whatever. Like there's a difference of like not saying something and a difference of like turning away something is being said,
Yeah. And so let's turn on to like the scale. So like, is it different? Because we're talking a lot about big corporations, and big corporations is definitely where this conversation should start because they have the biggest impact. Mm-hmm. But recently, at least over the last decade or so, you've had, and even a little bit beyond that, you've had small businesses that have also made a huge impact on both sides of the aisle, on in various ideologies with their stances on things. And the first thing I think of is obviously like the bakeries that are like, we're not baking a cake for a gay wedding.
Yeah.
And so like that doesn't seem to be a fiscal decision because like,
right. That's not necessarily like if you're baking a cake, who cares what you put on the top of it? Yeah. Like we'll make the cake, you put your topper on. You go buy your topper somewhere else, top it off. Who gives a shit where the cake is ending up and whose belly it's getting in, eventually getting in the belly of? You know?
Yeah. And not for nothing. I mean, when you make a cake for a hetero wedding, there's a very high chance that a gay person will have a slice.
More than likely.
So, but in reality,
at my wedding, there were gay people that had slices of our cake.
Yeah,
I know for a fact. So,
but I think overall, the main thing is like with a small mom and pop shop, if the owner, when you're an owner of a business, you know, for the most part, especially if you're a good business owner, you know what what the demographic is of the people that you're serving, right? And there isn't, I know that there are places that are less friendly toward the gay community and there are places that are more friendly, etc. But I don't think there's a single area in this country that doesn't have gay people. Like that's just, I mean, there may be people that are less likely to come out or whatever. But what I'm saying is, if you're a business owner and your decision is, hey, I don't want to make a cake for gay people, that's a risk that you're taking on for your business, right?
Well, right. And then that comes, like you were saying, it is no longer a fiscal decision.
Yeah.
Your business is, I will make cakes for people to purchase and then consume.
Yeah. That's the whole business model is I'm going to make my confections are going from my place to your hands, and then you're going to eat them, hopefully.
And that should be the bare minimum of it. Now, if someone's coming in and requesting like something obscene or demeaning or whatever, like there's a difference on that, I feel. Like if they're like, hey, I'm wanting to buy a thing that I'm going to take to a protest rally, and your name's going to be on it as the person who made this cake that says fuck everyone from Missouri or whatever. like then there's a point where they're like, no, well, I'm not going to make that. Yeah, because like I don't want my name associated with whatever.
Ted's Bakery has sponsored this fuck everyone from Missouri rally that we're throwing. No, and I get that. I mean, but like if Ted has decided that, you know, I hear the term sincerely held religious belief. I hate that phrase. I really do. Because it's not really, like, I don't think that's a phrase that should be in conversation. Like, I sincerely have a belief that Adam and Eve, blah, blah, blah. But I don't know that really should be in a courtroom because it's not something you can test. In the courtroom, you consistently hear reasonable.
Yeah.
Which is like, we're a society, and is it reasonable for me to say that if somebody walked into my house and I didn't invite them in and they broke down my door, that I feel like I'm being threatened?
Yeah.
Then yes. That's not a sincerely held belief. That's a reasonable standard. Like any normal person in my shoes is going to be like, yeah, somebody's trying to kill me. Blast away.
Yeah.
But sincerely held belief seems weird because, and I don't believe in slippery slopes, but it seems like something, and to prevent that, it seems like something that needs a definition. Like, at what point does your sincerely held religious belief become laughable? Where like now you're infringing on other people's society, and so you kind of have to define that. So like, it's my sincerely held religious belief that I throw chickens at people when they walk by my store because they're the infidel. Like that, you know what I'm saying? Like, so there's that.
Everyone was wear a cap on their head every third Tuesday of the month of May. Or
yeah, you have to come into my store drinking Kool-Aid. Otherwise, you can't get served. You know, there's a point at which you have to kind of define what does that mean? Like, what are you able to claim as a sincerely held religious belief? And you should be able to have those within the reason of what, like, we as a society, we have to decide, like, what's the limit to that, right? Because there has to be one. Having said that, the knife does cut both ways, because, like, recently we've seen a lot of stores that are like, hey, you can't come in here if you're not wearing a mask, right?
Right.
And there's a lot of places that there's no law that says you have to wear a mask. Like, I'll wear a mask when I go out now because I'm 40. I'm not trying to catch your stuff. And if I have something, because I've always had a really strong immune system, if I have something, I'm not trying to give somebody who has a weaker immune system something I got. Yeah. So I wear a mask. I don't wear it as a political statement, though. I wear it just because, that's the recommendation, and I didn't go to med school, so I'm taking that recommendation.
Yeah, Bill Nye has a whole demonstration on TikTok.
If you don't have TikTok, get TikTok. It's a fun time waster. But if you
probably find it on YouTube.
Yeah, you could, but get TikTok anyway because I said so. So
as a raging endorsement, right?
Yeah, there we go. It's awesome. So, but even with all of that, if you are a store that's in a community that has a lot of people that are like, I'm not wearing a mask, it infringes on my blah blah blah, which currently, if you're in a community that it's not illegal not to wear a mask, that's their right. Right. Mm-hmm. But if you have a policy that says, in order to come in this spot, you got to be wearing a mask, that's also a fiscal decision.
Right. Well, I mean, it's the same thing as no shirt, no shoes, no service.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing. Like, it's like, hey, you need a shirt on to
or
come
even,
in here.
You know what? Let's take that to the extreme. Like, there's some restaurants, you got to wear a jacket.
Yeah. You got to wear a jacket. You got to wear a tie or whatever. Like, and, we have a demeanor but that's, there's one thing of, like, if that's their policy, then you should know that, like, that's what they expect if you decide to patron. And if you don't believe in that, then don't spend your money there. Why are you going to make a scene of going there and not following their particular policy and then claim that they're the bad guy?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's that to them, having a mask and having a requirement to wear a mask or shoes or a shirt or whatever, that sounds like a safety, or, just like, hey, like, we have, hot foods and stuff coming in and whatever, like, we don't want somebody who's fresh off the beach covered in sand and salt water and whatever to come and sit on our chairs that, are, coated leather, premium leather and whatever. Like, we don't want our stuff getting ruined. So, like, we have this policy of, like, no wet bathing suits, no shirt, you got to wear a shirt and you have to have shoes on. Mm-hmm. Like, that's it's them protecting their assets and whatever, and having a mask is for safety and whatever else. Whether you believe it or not or whatever, that's your thing. But if you choose to not wear one, then you have to accept the fact that, like, you might not be allowed to shop here.
Yeah,
and we've announced that we live in Florida before. We currently not proudly.
Let me just clear that one up in case anybody's like, oh, I'm not like I wasn't. I know you were born here, but if you had a choice, I wasn't born here. Yeah. I came here, but, like, good Lord.
But
there's a thing on social media there's a little game that says, go onto Google and Google your date of birth and then type Florida man and give me the first headline that comes up. And I have yet to find somebody who can give me a date where there's not a Florida man headline. That is a badge of honor right there.
Oh, man. I might have to try that because that sounds fun, actually.
And you have quite the birthday for that.
I do.
So you'll probably have a good countdown.
I do. But we live in Florida, and there's currently a directive out there that says, like, hey, we highly recommend doing wearing a mask for whatever, for reasons to protect yourself in public safety or whatever, which also we have some of the biggest, influxes of international people showing up to our spot because in our state, we not only have like Miami and the beaches or whatever, but we've got Disney World, Universal Studios,
Cape Canaveral, Daytona Beach, St. Augustine, like Jacksonville, where the RNC is going to be for some reason. Like everything.
Yeah,
this is the nexus.
But we have a mask policy in place. It's currently not being enforced, but part of the statutes of Florida say that any business has the right to refuse service on any grounds that are not, sexual orientation or racial basis.
Yeah, the protected classes.
Yeah, or disabilities and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like that kind of a thing. But it's like, hey, we have a policy of like, if you want to come shop in our 7-Eleven, you need to have a mask on. And depending on particular stores and their owners or whatever, they can enforce that or not or whatever. But like they have the ability to refuse service to people if they feel like they're not following a simple policy. And if they put a sign on the door, like if you're going in to buy a Monster or, a candy bar or a hot sandwich or whatever from a 7-Eleven or a Wawa or a racetrack or whatever, like, is it going to bother you all that much to throw a mask on for 3 minutes while you walk in there and do it? Not really.
Nah.
And simply the fact that, like, you can go in there and then you're probably not going to stand at the counter and stare at the guy at the cashier and eat your sandwich or whatever. So, like, what's the real issue of standing here? Is it and I always contest this thing of like, is this somebody who has a real issue with this, or is it somebody trying to exert some sort of control on a larger corporation because they feel they can by claiming medical or social injustice or whatever? And I'm like, look, we're trying to protect everyone. And I wear a mask when I go outside and go into public or whatever. Not like out my front door, but like when, if I'm going into a place where people are, I'm like, I know people are dirty.
Yeah.
Everyone is dirty. Mm-hmm. I have no idea where anyone has been. I know where I've been, but I also know that people go to some weird places and don't wash their hands after taking a shit.
I always refer to the law of averages. It's like, if you consider yourself a clean person, like if I was to put a bell curve up, which part of the bell curve do you consider yourself to be in? And I'll think of your dirtiest moment that you've ever had.
Yeah.
And now look at the bell curve again and look at everything to the left of you.
Yeah.
That's what's out in the world.
Yeah. That's what's out in the world. Touching that can of beans that you just picked up that you now put in your bag or whatever.
Yep.
Like you have to like buying something at a place where like you pop the lid and then drink it. Like think about like the random guy that's crazy and homeless and like he's covered in his own filth. He walked into a 7-Eleven, started licking the caps of all the Coca-Colas, put them all.
Oh God!
Put them all back, and then left, and then took a shit in the parking lot. Because that's the guy. Because that's a real possibility.
That's what I wanted to do today.
He's like, because the crazy monkeys that live in my hair told me to do it. Like that's a thing that could happen. So like, yeah, when you go out and you're touching something that's publicly accessed, there's a chance that some ish is on it. And you should protect yourself. But now, like this is now straying way off of.
Well, no, it's exactly. I think you hit the nail on the head. And on the business side, it's also good to kind of like analyze and draw lines of where exactly do you want to plant your flag, right? And I'm gonna give you a quick story. Like you did house sitting for me and my wife when we got married. Like we didn't know each other for that long at that time.
Like a year.
It was like
so.
we were pretty cool. And I said, hey, I'm gonna get married. You want to watch my house? Now, one of the things that I wanted for my wedding, not for my wedding day, but for the rehearsal dinner, was I wanted a Dominican cake. Now I'm gonna tell you something. You had a slice of Dominican cake in my house, right?
Yes.
Wasn't that shit the bomb?
Yeah.
I bet you still remember that shit. Dominican cake is the best cake in the entire world. I'm Dominican, and I'm not even like exaggerating. Dominican cake, you need a package of sugar just to start making Dominican cake. It is spongy. It's delicious, right? And I wanted one. And so we live not in a Hispanic section of Florida, right?
Right.
And we live pretty far from where I would find what I would say is my people, even though we're all God's people, but Dominican people, right? And so what I wanted, like way before, like months of preparation, I'm calling places like, hey, do you make Dominican cake? I got married in 2009. In 2008, the entire economy crashed and everybody lost their shirt, right? I was just floored at the fact that I'm here, like in the business that I was in back then. If you said, hey, do you do, and whatever was, if it was slightly relevant to my business, my answer is it's the Ghostbusters thing. If someone asks you if you're a god, you say yes. Like everything was yes, and I'll fucking figure it out.
Yeah.
Just give me your contract. And so this isn't even like a gay cake. This is a style of cake
predominantly found in the Dominican Republic.
It originates in the Dominican Republic, but it's not like the oven is going to ask if you're, for a blood test to prove that you're Dominican to make it. Like 2009, YouTube existed, recipe websites existed, the internet existed. And if you're a bakery and I call you up and I'm like, hey, do you make Dominican cakes? The answer is
yes.
Hold on one second.
This isn't some code word.
Simulate typing. I'm actually typing into my notes, so like, let me just erase all that crap before I get confused.
And make sure it's not like code word for like, hey, do you sell C4?
Yeah, Dominican cake. Oh, the ingredients are the same as a regular cake, just in different proportions
and cooking times. And
okay. Yeah, I think I can handle that.
Yeah,
and then make a practice one and find you a friend. They're like, yo, you ever had Dominican cake? Taste this. Does that taste like Dominican cake to you? Yeah? Got you. Yeah, I got you. I could do that. Great. You know what? Send $20 to another bakery that's in like Miami or something and be like, hey, Dominican cake, I'm going to send you some money if you teach me how to make it. Because I'm doing this for a wedding, right?
Yeah.
Make the sale.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying
especially if you say it's for a wedding, it immediately increases the price by 25%.
Yeah, instantly. Especially since I'm gonna give you the rest of the money on that day, and on the wedding day, everybody goes, well, it turns out there was this cost that we hadn't really anticipated. So your bill is actually that much more. You want the cake, right? So.
And now you can put, like, now that you've learned it, you can now put that on the window of your shop.
Like,
hey, we know how to make Dominican cake.
Word.
Or whatever.
And so having, with all of that said, and it's not even like you're now becoming a Dominican cake shop. I've said all that to say, just get the business. Like for me, the bakeries that didn't have a Dominican cake, I ended up actually having my brother go to Miami and drive up because he had to go there anyway and pick up the cake and drive it up 4, 5, 6 hours to where the wedding was, right?
Oh, wow, yeah.
And that person made a butt ton of money. Like the person in Miami that made the cake, we paid them in spades because it was like, you're the only one.
Yeah.
We went past Orlando, we went past Orange City, we went past all these places. Nobody had a Dominican cake but you. You're the one place that said, yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
And so that sale literally went to somebody else. Now, there's a balance, right? And that's why I say you want to decide where to plant your flag. Because in my case, nobody that I called is like, hey, I have a deeply held, sincerely held religious belief that Dominican cakes are whatever.
Yeah.
But there are places that will say like, no, we don't do this because whatever. And then you also want to think like, how sincerely are we talking? Is it sincerely held like you really have that belief? Or are you sacrificing your business because you just want to do some bigotry? I can't answer that question. I don't have a horse in the fight. Right?
Yeah.
Like I don't even like I'm Dominican and I'm considered a minority, and I put that in quotes, but I own land. Like I have a house, I have a nice job. Like I don't even experience half the stuff that people of my race experience, right? So I can't even speak to it properly. But that's something like for business owners, and this is the flip side of it, right? So
Right.
You have your customers that are coming in. It's like, well, do I really want to take this fight to this person, or can I just go somewhere else?
Yeah.
But for a business, it's like, do I want to be the guy who planted his flag on here and now forever? There are some places that have lost their business over some of these decisions that they've made.
Yeah, no, totally.
And like, look, if you stand by that decision and the consequence that came with it and whatever, I applaud you, and that's your right, and whatever. But is it worth it? You know what I'm saying? Like, is that what it is? So that's a thought that you want to have. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about a completely different genre altogether, and that, or industry altogether, and that is entertainment, right? Because now that we're in, it's 2020, and from 2000 to now, everything comes out. So like people go, oh, I didn't know that artist was this or was that or whatever. And so like you'll have an artist or an actor or whatever that suddenly does this whole speech, and you're like, wait a minute. This person supports this? Like, I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
And you also have actors that get involved in stuff where, like, famously, you can't find a place to watch the Cosby Show anymore, right? Because obvious things, right?
Yeah.
So, when it comes to those political beliefs that people have, how does that color your support of their art? Because, like, I'll give you some examples. Like, for example, on the conservative side, you have Dean Cain, Candace Cameron, right? DJ, Full House.
Okay.
Come on. Tim Allen. You're never going to watch Toy Story again?
Yeah.
Clint Eastwood. I mean, he famously talked to an empty chair at the RNC.
Yeah.
Right? On the liberal side, you have Tom Hanks. Forrest Gump.
Mm-hmm.
So if whatever, Chrissy Teigen, Meryl Streep, D.L. Hughley, one of he's a legend.
Yeah. No,
So if you...
And I love actors on both sides of that. Yeah.
Like, I mean, Tim Allen... All right, we can't really... Let's not go with Toy Story, because Toy Story is a Disney Pixar film that happens to have both Tom Hanks and Tim Allen, right, in it as best friends. So like it's in the magical world of Disney.
Yeah.
But Home Improvement, you're not gonna watch Home Improvement? The Santa Claus, like what?
That's a thing me and my wife watch almost every year. Is the Santa Claus? I mean, it's
all
on
of
our
them?
shelf. 1 and 2, I think, is where we kind of like. Three is like if we both have like a couple of extended days off together.
Holy cow!
Like, we might watch 3.
I just learned something about Adam. Wow.
But in 3, it's Martin Short, and we like Martin Short too. Like
Martin Short's not bad.
But 1 and 2, like one is beautiful. 2 is a little rough, just because. I mean, it is what it is. But like, I mean, there's plenty of those. Like we love Elf. That's one of our other favorite Christmas
films.
Fred.
I had Fred Claus in my head, and I was gonna make a joke about that, but then you said Elf, and I'm like, yeah, Elf is the shit.
Yeah. But like, we also like one of my favorites is Nightmare Before Christmas, and that's Halloween and Christmas. Both holidays.
That's perfect.
So,
but I think the point here is like, you and I don't agree on everything politically. Like we don't really bring as much of we touch on the political this season, and we're going to be doing more of it, but we don't go deep into like political stuff because I don't think there really is a right answer outside of don't be an asshole to people. And if you're going to be an asshole, you're allowed to be an asshole to people. Just don't like hurt people. Right. Like, I love the Ghostbusters 2. Being miserable and treating other people like crap is every New Yorker's God-given right.
Yeah.
Like, that's fine. But I think regardless of which side everybody's just trying to live their best life. And so as long as you do that without like crapping on my lawn, that's fine. We don't have to agree on everything. So I guess my thing is, like, if you found out that, like, I'm looking at my Scarface poster right now, and if I found out that, like, I know Al Pacino is not a fan of certain politicians, he's outspoken, same as Robert De Niro, so if you don't agree with them, are you never going to watch The Godfather again? You're not going to watch Scarface. You're not going to watch Carlito's Way. Think of all of that stuff would go away, right? And then you go further back to, like, you could go all the way back to, like, what if you found out that Da Vinci was, like, so you're never gonna look at the Mona Lisa, you're not gonna fly in a helicopter, like, what where does it end? So I've laid the groundwork. What are your thoughts?
There's a difference between action and thought process, and, like, believing something a certain way is one thing. Taking action on it is different. And then also, like, if you think a certain way and it doesn't necessarily hurt anybody, like, look, that's not for me, do what you're gonna do, kind of a thing, then who cares? You can be friends with nearly anyone and have differences of opinion, but it's more of the time. I'll give this example. I had a friend that me and him on paper, like, shouldn't have gotten along. He was loud and boisterous. He was partying. He was in a rock band. He was, whatever. But, like, me and him had similar jokes. We had similar, interests. We had interests in similar music and stuff. But, like, he was in a band, and he would get into a lot of, like, extracurricular activities that I was not interested in being part in, which was fine. But, like, otherwise we hung out and we were friends. And it's nothing against people in bands. Like, I have friends in bands and whatever. But the relationship with him got to be too much work. Like, we were friends, and then he bought a house, and then, like, he was like, "Oh, I'm renovating the downstairs into a studio so I can record." And I'm like, "Oh, that's cool." And then, like, it never really did, and that just turned to be the place where he would throw all of his empty beer cans and never really made a studio. And then, like, he would have a gig, but, like, he would never, like, it would, that sloppy part that, like, the lead singer of Creed got into, like, later in their career or whatever, like, where he was, like, drunk on stage and falling asleep or whatever. He kind of got into that.
I mean, let's be honest. You can insert a lot of
people there. He was too much rock star, not enough musician.
Okay,
I'll say that. And it was like, dude, you're a trip to kind of hang out with or whatever. And the time when I called it on the friendship, it was like, look, dude, this is the third time in a week you've called me to get you out of trouble. Like, I had to come pay a bill at a restaurant. I had to come bring him gas. And it's like, he went out partying. And it's not like, hey, Adam, come party. It's like, hey, I'm drunk and out of gas, or I'm drunk and I have no money to pay my bill. Can you come help me? And I'm like, look, at this point, like, I can come help you out, but, like, stop calling me, because, like, I work too hard for my money to throw it down your throat or whatever. So it got to a point where I was like, all right, dude, we're done. Like,
raps.
Like, but, like, in general, before it got to that point, we were good. And I had plenty of fun with him, but he had wildly different views, and we were good for a good long part of it. But, like, he went down a rabbit hole that I couldn't do, and it turned in from, like, hey, this is what I think, to this is what I'm doing, and it fell apart. And that's where I feel some of these companies can go do, is like, hey, we do and support this particular thing. Like, oh, now our standards have changed. Oh, now we're a train wreck of a conglomerate, and everything's on fire.
Yeah,
and it's like,
absolutely.
Okay, so now we're firing. Like, you're firing people for no reason, or you're firing people who's like, oh, look, this person's making too much money, or whatever. Like, we made some bad fiscal decisions. We're firing everyone, or we're selling off all of our assets, or we're doing this, or we're doing, like, you're treating your employees like shit. It's like, hey, these are people that have worked hard, and it's not like you don't have the money to pay them. Like, your CEOs are just getting greedy and like chopping people.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we didn't make, triple the profits that we did. Like, this is a big problem I have with a lot of like some of the like big communication companies right now, is that AT&T, Verizon, Comcast, all these companies, like, they're in the record profits for like the last 5 or 6 years, and then they're like cutting.
And not for nothing, like for the last few months, when everybody's like, who's not paying their phone bill?
Right. And then they're gonna cut like a third of their workforce. Is like, oh well, we didn't make as much money as we wanted to, so we got to find it somewhere.
Yeah.
And we're gonna find it in your fucking.
And
salary.
I'm gonna tell you, for a lot of these companies, they could straight up forget political person. They could straight up support my block and be like, hey, I want to put lights on Christmas lights and bring, artists to do shows for you for free.
Mm-hmm. We're going to decorate everything and make it like your floor to look like a wonderland. We're going to have a snow machine running 24/7 to make sure that everything's nice and frosty.
Yeah.
In the middle of, Florida's
but I
winter.
can't stand by while you're like, if you're actively ruining people's lives, that's different from saying, hey, I want to give to a political like giving to a political campaign, whatever. Like, I could agree with you, I could disagree with you, but whatever, right? But if you're going like, hey, there are some companies out there that you worked there for 35 years, you retired, you're done with everything, right? And you're getting your pension. And then you get a letter. Yeah, that's gone.
Yeah, it's gone just because they said so or whatever. And it's like, people put their lives into that kind of stuff. And like, we
merged with the Acme brand, and now you don't have a pension anymore.
Yeah. So everything, all of our structure and everything has changed, and that's a shit way to do anything to anybody. And like, I can understand like not supporting some of that. I haven't had cable in. Jesus. What year is it?
Which way does time go?
Probably since 2008. I haven't had like, standard cable television or whatever, or satellite television or whatever. Like, it's all been internet based or like, pay as you go or Netflix,
Which a lot of people are moving to. And in a lot of cases, blame them at all. In a lot of cases, I think it's because it's more practical and it's more cost effective. But I could stand by that as like a political statement also, because notoriously a lot of the old school telecom companies and a lot of the old school like the cable companies, their business practices are not the best.
Well, a lot of them aren't, because they were trying to infringe on internet neutrality and try and make it so that the internet's not allowed. You're not allowed to have free roaming access. Like, you have to go back to, like, imagine having to go, like, on your computer right now, having to go back to a sign-in AOL system, and the only news that you can access is AOL's news. And then if you wanted to do anything else or go to any other website, you had to pay a fee to get, like, that's some shit, man. Like, so, like, but that's what they were trying to do, like, because they were losing money. And they're like, well, while we've got our political clout, while we've got it, because we supported X, Y, and Z politicians to get in office, make them sign a bill that says that we can continue to do what we do. That's a majority of why car sales are still the way they are, is because there was a bunch of shit put in the system of how cars are supposed to be sold. And then that's why we got these stupid bloated prices for these massive cars that, like,
because you can't buy it directly from the manufacturer. You gotta go to the dealership.
You gotta go to a dealership and stuff.
So here's my final thought on this, is that, you really want to be thoughtful of both on the customer end and on the business end. Where exactly do you want to plant your flag?
Because what fight do you want to have?
How badly do you want to pursue because on a customer end, you can make your life really uncomfortable really quickly. And on a business end, you can actually destroy your entire business. Having said that, if somebody has a political belief that's different than yours, fight for yours. Fight for your political belief. Let that be where it goes, right? And everybody else has a right to their political belief. Even if you feel that their political belief is infringing on somebody's whatever, that's why we have laws, and that's why we do these things. We have these conversations. I'll leave it with, sometimes when you do plant that flag, you're hurting more than just the company, because the company's comprised of people, and that has far-reaching impact. So, be mindful of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, is it worth trying to put up a fight? Like, sometimes somebody or a company or whatever might not even be aware of what it is that they're doing. Like, they might not have the money to throw into a political, what do they call them? Like, when you have an outside person come in and inspect something at your company to find out
consultants?
A consultant to come in and do like an effective analysis of like their business practices or whatever. Like, maybe they're just handling stuff the way they know that they need to handle and what needs to work. And it's like, hey, look, if you use this kind of chicken, when you're getting eggs, you'll get better results, and it's better for the environment and whatever else. And it's like, oh, I didn't know that, and there's a lot of stuff in place where you can find information for that, but the business itself also has a lot of other people that are attached to it that are making their living off of getting that business. And it's not necessarily that, like, if you go into a Chick-fil-A and start screaming at the 19-year-old that's working behind the counter, they're there for a job. They're not necessarily taking a political stance against LGBTQ. They're like, I sell sandwiches at $10 an hour. Like, that's my thing. And like, if you're gonna have a protest or whatever, you probably need to find the right avenue, I guess.
Yeah.
In order to do it, because how much effort are you gonna put into it and gonna affect what? The 9 teenagers that are working at your Chick-fil-A on a Saturday afternoon. What are they gonna do? They're gonna be like, they're gonna be more upset that you're keeping them there and preventing them from doing what they need to do to either come into work or go home. And it's not necessarily going to get your point across. There's a whole thing that we've talked about like how to talk to people and how to reason with them, and it's like, look, for whatever belief or whatever it is, like whatever you believe, what do you need me to present you in order to change your mind? And if that's presented to you, and then your
goalposts,
your goalposts have been moved since then, and it's like, well, then there's no logically reasoning with you, because you're just going to make up some other random decision that I'm never going to be able to fulfill that because you've already made the decision that I'm going to think this way, and no matter what I tell you, it's not going to change.
I have no problem agreeing to disagree with people. The place I plant my flag is logic. So if your stuff doesn't make logical sense, I'm gonna call it out. But if you just want to say, hey, I feel this way because this is how I feel, then that's perfectly fine. On that note, like, share, comment, subscribe, all of that stuff.
Right. Yeah.
If you have any differing opinions, or actually, no, you know what? If you disagree with us, keep it to yourself. Don't send us any email or whatever.
Just leave a comment. Or whatever.
Yeah.
Start a rage war in the comments. That's fine.
So flame on your own time.
Yeah.
And
just don't think that we're necessarily gonna interact with your hate. That's one thing.
I'll probably mock it in some way. But if you agree with us and you think we're the greatest things in sliced bread, by all means, send us a comment and extolling the virtues of End of a Species and all of that stuff.
And then share it with your friends so that they know.
Or don't, as long as you keep in mind, fuck GameStop.